Can you, I know, I read the demand letter, but I was hoping you could just sort of walk me through in your own words what happened that night.
Yeah, so I was invited out to get some drinks in this, shopping center's kind of like bar restaurant, and I did met up with them. There were some other people there, and we decided, kind of continue the night, go somewhere else. Wasn't really sure where we were going, and I thought actually some more people were coming with me, these girls that were there, but it turned out that they were not coming with us. And got in the car. We were on our way to Dallas from Plano, and pretty much when we got to our destination, we parked. The people who were in the car, besides me and him, got out the car. It was just me and him in the car. In this SUV Tahoe, we were actually in the third row, and that's where it happened, in the parking lot of our destination that we were going to.
Obviously only within the bounds with which you're comfortable, but can you tell me what exactly happened?
So we were in the third row. I was on the inside, he was on the outside, so I couldn't get out. He had a driver with him. There was two friends. One of the friends were in the middle. The other friend was in the passenger seat. Everybody got out, and the friend in the middle went around the car to open the door to let us out, but I saw him gesture kind of with his hand, like to not touch the door, not let us out, and then he just kind of walked off. And he just, kind of made his move, started kissing on the side of me, kind of on my cheek and on my neck, and I was, when he did the gesture, my heart kind of dropped. I didn't expect that. I didn't, you kind of, it's like but you don't want to believe it, what could happen. So I was kind of laughing it off at first, like no, and kind of turning my body away from him, but I'm in this small back seat, like it's just us two. He's a big guy, and he just, when I turned kind of towards him, I think that's when he thought that maybe I gestured something, and he just kind of pushed me back, and I just froze.
Do you remember, did he say something? Did you say something? What can you tell me about that moment, the interaction?
He didn't say anything, no. I froze, and, he pulls my pants down, and pants weren't even all the way, off of my legs, so it's just an awkward position, and it's just tight, and it was heavy, and yeah, that's what happened.
I know this happened several years ago, but talk
It
about
did.
it now. How do you feel?
It's a lot because I suppressed it. I blamed myself for a while. I, just in the line of work that I was in, I felt like I was going to be judged, and he is who he is. Look what's happening now. I didn't have the support back then that I have today, and this is exactly what I was afraid was going to happen, that it was going to be turned around on me, that nobody was going to believe me, that I, lied, and which is not the case at all. I don't like attention. I'm not on social media. I'm very reserved. I didn't tell anybody because, I didn't have the support back then, just with my family dynamic, and I'm not very good at being vulnerable and being looked as the weak person. So I'm always strong. I'm always, stay strong, and everybody looks at me as a strong person, and I feel like people would be even shocked that this happened, that maybe I allowed it, or they blame me because, you know, I'm a girl. Why do you hang out? Like, why did you even agree to go out with him? Like, I was just scared. Like, I was scared of what he could do, and what, like, if he could ruin my life, if I got fired from where I was working. Like, I don't know him. I don't know what he's capable of, but I know he's a big time football player. And what's happening now is exactly what I was afraid of.
Do you remember what you felt or thought in that moment in the time?
I was shocked. You know, you never think about those things until it happens, or like you say things like, oh, I can never, you know, that could never be me. I would do this, I would fight back and all this stuff, but you don't know until it happens to you and you're put in that position. And the way that your brain just kind of shuts off, and like you get scared, or like fear comes over and you can't say anything, you can't do anything, and then you start thinking about all these things that could happen, like, you know. So all that was kind of going through my head at the time.
What is it that's making you emotional right now?
I mean, because, you know, for a long time I did blame myself. I did worry, like, did I do something? Did I say something? And, you know, it's taken a lot to make this step, and it took so long. And so it's just a lot of emotions with it. A lot of emotions is coming with it. It's nice to get it out at the same time, but it's just a lot.
I think I read when your attorney put out that statement last night, either in that or in the demand letter, I can't remember, but I believe I read one of the things you had said was that in that altercation you made it clear that you know, verbally you did not want to be there. Can you talk to me about that?
Like be there in the car, or not want to.
You did not want to engage in any kind of.
Yeah, and so like when I was, because at first, you know, I wasn't trying to make it awkward. I didn't know if he would cause a scene, get out the car, tell me to get out, and, you know, because my car was still in Plano. And so at first I was like, you know, just trying to, like, you know, no, and then turn my body around, and then, you know, I was like, no, and that was it.
He continued.
I think he took it as a joke or something.
How did you meet him?
At my job at the time.
Were you working at a bar as a waitress? Is that right?
Yes.
I wonder, you know, he has come out, as you're obviously well aware, and he has filed a lawsuit against you. When you heard that, what was your reaction?
Shocking. I didn't know you could do that.
How did it make you feel?
I felt like now, you know, I look like the liar. I look like, you know, I am doing this for just because of it. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm not going to be taken seriously now. Is exactly what I thought back then. And I was genuinely shocked.
This came out yesterday, and already I know that you have been attacked online. What kind of things have people said to you?
I mean, my address was put out there. You know, they were saying that, you know, this is, I think I saw, you know, this is why it's hard for other victims to come out. And one person said that, you know, I hope he wins and she goes to jail. And so it's just shocking, and it's hurtful.
How is it? You said it's hurtful. Talk to me about how it's made you feel to see that stuff.
Because if you knew me, you would know this is not my character. So It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, but I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for that to happen to me.
You still think about it often?
Yeah, I have.
What is it you're feeling right now?
Just a lot of emotions.
Can you talk to me about the effect that that night has had on your life in the last 7 years?
Yeah, afterwards, I just kind of, like I said, I blamed myself for a while. I, kind of started to drink more. And I did depend on alcohol for a while after that. I gained, my temper was real high. I got into a relationship, and I noticed that, I would take things out on my relationship on him. I didn't like to be touched for a while. And it would be off and on, just spurts of anger and not wanting to be touched, and so.
I suspect your attorneys have explained to you that the statute of limitations, you're past that point to file a civil lawsuit.
Yeah.
Are you interested in trying to pursue criminal charges against Dak?
Yeah.
Is that something you think you will do?
Yes.
And why is that important to you?
Because it's doing something. I've been silent for all these years, and, taking it. I don't know if you noticed, but anywhere you go, you see him. He's in grocery stores, he's on ads, he's in the gas stations, and so I've endured, I think enough. I've built a closer relationship to God, and, I started going to church, and, I've started becoming more comfortable in being vulnerable, and this was the biggest step to do, and to get right with myself, and this is something that I felt like I needed to do.
As part of the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that's something that folks probably ask you, why now?
Why now? Yeah.
Is that it, that you just feel like you're in a place where you're strong enough to? And
Yeah, it's taken a while. It's it was hard to talk about it for years and years. It was even hard to think about it. But yes, I want to take control back over my life, back over, I don't want to be that angry person. I don't want to be just miserable. And so I wanted to do something about it.
one of the things Dak's lawyer said, which I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to, is they say that, after the incident, you spent, more of the night with him and his friends, and that, you saw him again afterward, and things were amicable. And so that's something they've brought up. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, yeah, so my car was at the bar, and when we were at our destination, I actually ran into a friend of mine, and I told her to come back with me. So whenever I was walking around him, he held my hand. So it's not like I could just run away or walk away. So I saw my friend, I said, come back with me and take me to get my car. So we got in the car, same setup pretty much. He led me to the back, the very back, and he was pretty intoxicated, so he actually fell asleep. And we went all the way back to his house. She followed us, and I told her to take me to my car.
And after that night, had you seen him again?
Yeah, because he would come into my place of work.
Did you feel pressure to sort of keep up that relationship because of your job at all?
No. I knew, couldn't tell my bosses. They would fire me because that's, a big client of theirs, or, a big customer. So I just, would tell my fellow waitresses to, take care of it, or take care of the table if I was requested, or if they were trying to put me on there. I just, I tried to stay away.
I wonder, I guess that's a good question for your lawyers. But one of the things they said in their statement to us was that, Dak and his lawyers were trying to play hardball, big attorney, big sports star, kind of bully you and victim blame, and they felt that way.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, that's what it feels like now since it came out yesterday. That's what it seems like.
You talked about seeing him in grocery stores and kind of anywhere you go in town. What has that been like for you over the last 7 years?
They're triggers. So depending how I was feeling that day, I might shed a couple tears, I'd get angry, or I just, ignore it.
In the statement from your attorneys, they talked about that this has had a big effect on your relationship with your fiance. How so?
Just with, communications, the touch things, I might come off as insensitive, maybe not wanting to be intimate in some circumstances, kind of cold, giving him the cold shoulder sometimes. He wouldn't understand, my anger outbursts. When it would be a fight about something, it's not really about that something, you know what I'm saying? So, we went to counseling, and that also helped open the door for me to be comfortable enough to come out, and then that's what, led us here.
Has he been supportive of you doing this?
Very. Yes, very.
And you mentioned sort of now you have the support system. Do you feel like in part you're able to kind of go through this journey because you have him? Is that who you're referring to?
Him, yes. My lawyers, my dad, yeah. Even though it is hard to come out, just try to, if you have that support system, come out as soon as possible, as soon as you can. Yeah, I think that's all.
Given the things people have said and the backlash from people online, you still happy that you did this?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Why?
Because it's a step of healing for me, even though, all this is going on, it still feels good at the same time that this is happening, that I am coming out, and I am saying something.
You talked about pursuing, criminal charges. What would your hope be? What would you want to come out of that? Why is that important to you?
I do want him to suffer somewhat of how much I suffered. So if that's getting arrested, spending some time in jail if needed, then I want that.
I think off the bat, the biggest thing I would want to ask you is, you obviously heard from Dak's attorneys yesterday. They came out and announced their lawsuit. Just your reaction to all the things that they said and put out in the universe yesterday.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say that both of us were flabbergasted. In our mind, we're saying, you raped somebody and you want to file a lawsuit. When we read, the whole extortion narrative, we were really just mind blown because what we did was send a demand letter, which is very standard. We and other attorneys do it every single day for millions and millions of cases nationwide. But what they're trying to do is they want to take over the narrative. They wanted to beat us to the punch and try to make this about something else that it's not. We want the narrative to reflect what this is, which is Dak Prescott raped somebody. So what they're trying to do, Dak and his attorney, Levi McCatherine, is they're basically the ones who are now trying to commit extortion. They're trying to send a message that, hey, we're Goliath, and if you don't put this thing away, X, Y, Z is gonna happen. One of the things that Levi filed was torturous interference with an existing contract. absolutely nothing to do with anything that this case is. But he's trying to use intimidation tactics.
And do you think he's not just trying to scare her, but also the two of you?
He's trying to, yes, all three of us. And I wouldn't be surprised. I can't say this as a fact, certainty, but I wouldn't be surprised if the people who have been sending us messages are not at their discretion, or direction, excuse me. So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an intimidation factor, trying to use old common practice of victim shaming and victim blaming. Let me get the attention off of me. But we're not afraid of Mr. Prescott or his legal team at all. We're ready to fight back, and we are going to fight back.
And am I right that he didn't just sue Victoria, but he sued the two of you as well?
Yes, that is correct.
Which is very uncommon, which was very surprising to us. But once again, it's an intimidation tactic, a bully tactic, trying to scare us.
Yes, and according to Texas law, we don't even believe that lawsuit directed at us was even had any basis in law. There is a lot of law in Texas that says you cannot sue attorneys for what they do during the course of their work. So we'll address that. We'll address the lawsuit against our client, and we are not going to be bullied, as she said, which is what they're trying to do, is bully us.
We are definitely going to be pursuing criminal charges. I don't want to say too much, but what I can tell you is that the criminal charges and the civil case we're pursuing both of them ongoing at the same time, simultaneously. And so the way it would work is we would file a police report, they'll do their investigation, and depending on what comes from the investigation, the case will move forward from there.
And so the plan is now at some point to have your client file a police report?
Absolutely.
And we are in the process of that.
Had she, at your direction or before she met you at all, had she filed a police report on this incident in the past?
So it's taken her a while to come out, both for the civil case, criminal case, just speaking out in general. It's something she's been dealing with for a long time, and it's not uncommon at all for sexual assault victims to take some time before they address the incident. And it's one of the most common tactics. The other party says, well, she never said anything about it for this amount of time. But now she's ready, and we're handling both civil, criminal, and also just speaking out against Dak in general to let people know who he really is.
And filing a police report, would that be through the Dallas Police Department?
Yes,
Correct.
that would be correct.
As far as civil, you talked about civil, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, as far as a civil lawsuit, she's passed the statute of limitations.
So she's passed the statute of limitations for sexual assault, for civil, but there are other avenues that we do have available to address this incident, and we plan to do that very soon with a counterclaim.
One of a counterclaim to you'll countersue Dak
Correct.
for his lawsuit.
Correct.
And that's something you're also in the process of, a
Absolutely.
civil countersuit.
Absolutely.
One of the things I asked your client, and that you said you'd take over, which I suspected you might say, the $100 million. And I'm sure you see people on the internet, $100 million. That's a huge number. Why $100 million?
So I've seen people say, why $100 million? I think that is just so awful, because what you're basically saying is, she should have a cap, for a rape case. There's an old saying in wrongful death cases where, what is the value of a dead person, right? In a wrongful death case. We look at rape as the same exact thing. What is the value you can put on a rape? Who are you, not you specifically, but I'm just saying we see it in people saying that. Who are you to tell a rape victim what she is entitled to? I don't think that there is a number that you can put that'll truly compensate somebody for a rape case.
So
yeah.
we talked about, you and your client will pursue criminal charges. You're in the process of filing a report with DPD, working on a civil countersuit. Mm-hmm. Those to me kind of stick out as like the three big, this is what's next.
Yes.
Is there anything else that I should, report that I should be aware of that sort of happens next for you and your client?
Those are the three main things, and in addition to that, just speaking out and getting her story out there, just telling the truth, and like Mr. Zahai said, Mr. McCathern got out there to his credit and put out his narrative, but we're here to tell the truth, And that's what we are going to do.
I wonder, seeing some of the vitriol that has been directed to your client online, I suspect as attorneys probably had a feeling some of that would happen, but what has it been like to actually see and read?
It's been difficult. I've seen people putting my client's address out there, throwing her name out there, making statements saying that this is why it's hard for sexual assault victims to come forward. In addition to that, I've even received some hate emails, some fake spam reviews. It's been difficult to navigate through it, but we are staying focused and we're not going to get distracted by that. It's part of the process. It's what we have to deal with. We're dealing with the quarterback of America's team, so we knew going into this that those things were going to happen, but we're not going to let them distract us. So during our initial conversation with Mr. McCathern, his attorney, he flat out said that Mr. Prescott did not know who she was. And then maybe a week or so later, during a second conversation that we had, he all of a sudden, oh yes, I remember her. And then the next time we talk, and as you see in his narrative, now it's not only do I know her, but we had consensual sex. And that is a completely different tone now that we are seeing from our initial conversation with Mr. McCathern, to go from, I have no idea who you're talking about, to, oh, by the way, I do, and we had consensual sex, is just completely beyond me.
What else did I not ask the two of you that you would want to touch on?
I think we've basically covered most of it, but we just want to reiterate that, about the narrative. We do not want this narrative to be us having to be on the defensive, and we're gonna fight this back no matter how much they try to bully us.
Levi, if you could tell us about this lawsuit that you have filed on behalf of Dak Prescott.
Okay, so today we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Dak Prescott. In short, Dak has found himself the subject of a $100 million extortion plot. A woman is making up allegations from a brief interaction she had with Dak Prescott over 7 years ago. And in return for her silence and her agreeing to not press what I believe to be false criminal charges, she's asked Dak to pay her $100 million. Let me tell you what's so important about this. All of the civil causes of action she could have, and so that people at home understand, there's civil lawsuits that seek money, there's criminal lawsuits that seek punishment. All of the civil causes of action she could have to seek money, the statute of limitations is run. It's 5 years. So for her to demand money now, the only reason she could be demanding it is to not press criminal charges. To go further, then I've provided you with a copy of the letter, what we believe is the extortion letter, asking Dak to pay this money by a certain deadline. I also had a telephone conversation with her attorneys, wherein her attorneys confirmed to me that the only reason they could possibly have to request money from Dak Prescott was for them to not come forward and bring, again, what we believe are patently false criminal charges. This is a problem for all survivors of sexual assault. To allow somebody to exploit our system like this just for monetary gain undermines everything that I think the Me Too movement has been doing. Mr. Prescott says in his pleading that all of the money he receives, if any, from this lawsuit, he is going to donate to the survivors of actual claims as opposed to a false claim like this.
So they actually did meet. They met, they talked, they hooked up, or whatever happened.
He did meet her. He did not do the things that it says in her petition, but yes, he had a relationship with her. She was a waitress at a bar he frequented. She came out one night with a group of friends and had met Mr. Prescott, and then spent a evening where they went to numerous locations. She happens to allege, as you'll see in the letter, one of the locations in the middle is where she says that the sexual assault occurred. Mr. Prescott remembers the night. remembers going out and spending time with her and her friends, but obviously nothing even close to along the lines of what she's alleging here happened.
And I hate to ask it, but did they have sexual intercourse, or was it consensual in any way?
He did not have sexual intercourse with her. I don't know, we all were in high school, and I think he was a single guy at the time, and I would call it a makeout session, is what occurred.
Why do you think she's coming forward now?
Well, I think she has 100 million reasons to come forward now. I think that's the only reason she's coming forward now. I think maybe what has driven the 100 million reasons is she recently got engaged, and I think her fiance, he's not a named defendant in this lawsuit, but I think he's an integral part in why this is happening now so many years later.
Had she ever made these allegations to Dak? Had she ever contacted him prior to this?
She had never contacted him prior to this letter. They did have interactions for a few years. He'd seen her places, and they always had very pleasant, amicable interactions. It completely came out of the blue when he got this letter. He didn't remember at first who this person was, had to do a little digging to dig it up, and he goes, oh yes, I certainly remember her. So it just completely came out of nowhere.
This reminds me a little bit of the other case, and that we interviewed about involving Jerry Jones. Do you think that sometimes there's just this shakedown of high-profile, especially athletes, and someone like Jerry Jones?
There are great pros and cons with celebrity. There's no doubt. And I would never sit here and ask for anyone's tears over someone having to be a celebrity. As they say, millionaire problems, celebrity problems. Yet, one of the downsides of celebrity or of wealth is obviously that people use our court system, our media system, to try to enrich themselves at the expense of people that didn't do anything wrong. It's a clear case of what's happening here.
And Dak felt so strongly that he wanted to sue before she filed any kind of...
I'm very glad you asked that. So I am proud of Dak. One of the things that I think inspired Dak here is he just had a daughter. He is a strong advocate against sexual violence, domestic violence, any kind of violence against women. He feels like that giving in to attempts like this actually take away from the credibility of real survivors. I actually have Jim Falk here with me today, who was many years a prosecutor with the district attorney's office, to kind of speak to how this actually distracts from real survivor stories and real survivors' ability to get justice.
Can you get the FBI or someone involved on an extortion to investigate this woman, or have you?
So we've already contacted local law enforcement. They have opened an investigation into this. Their investigation is not complete because obviously we were given a short time frame before we heard the false criminal charges would be coming. So we came forward and Mr. Prescott came forward first before the investigation is complete. Obviously we would have loved to allow that to play out, but yes, there's already an investigation open, and I'm sure that you guys will have whatever access under the Freedom of Information Act or whatever they will provide you. So yes, we have contacted law enforcement about this.
And what is Dak seeking in his countersuit?
We don't have a specific number. I mean, if the jury finds that $1 is sufficient, again, Dak Prescott is not going to take a dime of this money. That's very important. If they think $1 is a symbol sufficient, if they think it's $100 million, since that's what she asked for, obviously leave it up to the jury.
When you look at Dak Prescott, you know him. I mean, he was Walter Payton Man of the Year last year.
Right.
By all accounts, everyone that talks about Dak that's around him says that, I mean, he loved his mom. He's always, would this be out of character for Dak Prescott?
It would be beyond out of character. Dak Prescott is one of the finest human beings I've ever met. He's somebody that I have a son here that works for me now at the law firm. I would be proud for him to emulate Dak Prescott in everything he does. I think that that's one of the reasons that they realized that they could press the money button on his image. A lot of people would be scared to defend themselves in the way Dak is because they don't even want these kind of things being said about them. And of course, Dak doesn't want them being said, but anybody who knows Dak or anybody who's spent any time with him knows these allegations have got to be false. And so he's kind of taking a stand for some of the folks who might be hesitant to actually come forward and call these people on their bluff.
So you've done a lot of these types of cases where you were prosecutor prosecuting sex offenders. When you look at this case, what do you think?
I mean, so I was a prosecutor and handled violent and sexually violent offenses for almost 18 years. And so I come into every case with kind of that lens of believe her, right? Because that is what we should be doing societally. But the moment that I was brought into this case and the moment that I read the demand letter, it gave me great concern. I recognize the courage that it takes for survivors to come forward, whether that's coming forward to a friend, a therapist, police, whoever it is, when they come forward. And these types of cases, so specifically an extortion attempt for $100 million on a high profile, high visibility, local kind of hero in our community, they truly do undermine all of the progress that we have made societally in that Believe Her movement.
What was it that gave you, well, obviously the $100 million, what was it that raised the red flags for you?
I mean, for me, really, it was just the blatant wording in the extortion letter. I recognize every victim's right and opportunity to have legal counsel, and they should, whether it is through a prosecutor, where they're not directly their lawyers, but still obviously advocating on their behalf, whether it's lawyers like us helping sexual assault survivors as they go through this trauma. The letter that Dak and we received says expressly, we will forego pursuit of criminal charges. We will forego publicity in exchange for such an extreme amount of money. That phrasing in and of itself pauses me immediately. It's been 7 years. And I recognize that survivors do not come forward immediately, but for her to come forward in this manner is what tells me, coupled with our client's vehement denial that he has ever committed any sort of not consensual or sexual assault, that really is what tells me that this is an extortion attempt. That is it.
So typically, when you have a victim that does finally decide to come forward, would they not come forward to law enforcement? The statute's not up here, obviously.
Yes, that is what most victims do. I think really, if you look at all the studies on it, most victims, if they don't come forward almost immediately or in the kind of near vicinity right after the actual assault occurs, they may really, the first adults that they tell is a friend or a partner or a therapist. And their support network is who kind of encourages them to do the right thing and to go to the police to hold the offender accountable. Prisons were made in many people's view for sexually violent offenders. And so going to the police to report a crime is what should be done. Whether that crime is sexual assault or that crime is extortion, the police are who it should be reported to.
And to your recollection, I mean, she didn't get a rape kit. She didn't, as far as you know, never made these allegations towards Dak prior to this or anything like that, which typically a rape victim might do.
Correct. As far as we know, there is nothing outside of her story or her narrative, and her legal team's pushing this forward through their extortion letter.
We're told always believe the victim, and then you're like the bad guy if you say, well, we don't believe you. So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place.
I know, but just like Levi said, I mean, I am proud of our client for coming forward and being a public face in this, because honestly, I think that it would be easier for him to just throw some money at it and get a non-disclosure. I think that's what many people do because they don't want kind of the tarnish that this can bring and the spotlight that it can bring, and that publicly saying this is a false claim. But it is important because that really is the balance to the false claims that then undermine the legitimacy of kind of our progression societally.